Okay, guys, we are back for part 2 of the Raw Coaching Off-Season Blueprint. Thank you very much for tuning back in. This is probably the more exciting. We've laid the foundations. Now it's time to actually start talking about how we're actually going to get massive. So, starting off with troubleshooting, elongating the journey by any means. This needs to be, again, along with the focus of always be growing, we want to try and elongate this journey, because growing is a process that takes time. And if you're too generous, if you do the whole perma bulk, I'm going to get massive and I want to grow, so I'm just going to start eating everything. How long does that actually last? 4 weeks, 6 weeks, until you're like, wow, I look fat, and wow, I don't really feel like doing this anymore because I'm not really that motivated. So elongating the journey is a massive priority, and needs to be a massive priority for you guys and girls. All right, don't cut off your runway by starting too fat, coming out of the gates too quickly, making too many changes too fast, then find yourself in a world of problems where you've then got to fix it. Okay, you can materialize an enormous amount of muscle without getting fat over a long period of time and keep it. Okay, that is an absolute guarantee. Promise. Number 2, be sparing with escalation. So when you're making adjustments, guys, we really need to focus on the reality of, again, only making one change at a time. But secondly, actually allowing that change to fully materialize the results that you're trying to achieve. You shouldn't be making changes without actually knowing what you're trying to achieve anyway. But as I said, be sparing with your escalations. Allow the change to actually materialize. You may make a 10% food increase on carbohydrates, and you may let that run for 2-3 weeks and just watch yourself get better and better, or watch your client get better and better. Now, potential hurdles that we can potentially see is appetite. Number 1, again, coming out the starting gate, you'll be super hungry, super sensitive, ready to eat the world after thousands of crumpets with jam on, or bagels, or whatever your carbohydrate choice is. Eventually you're going to start to see ghrelin levels drop, which is your hunger signaling hormone, and something that is very good for managing that. For example, something that I would consider deploying in that case, certainly at the very back end, if we were really trying to stretch this growth phase out and keep food as high as possible, is a GHRP6. Okay, it's basically a synthetic agonist for ghrelin secretion. Okay, very useful. You can get it. You can get it at like Biolabs, for example. If anyone wants a link for it, please feel free to ask. Another way to manage appetite is to consider things like histamine and histidine. So histamine essentially will cause all manner of issues through the stomach, through your immune system, and through your brain, actually, from a neurotransmitter perspective. But stomach is something that we'll focus on here. GI functionality and motility is so important, right? We need to be in a position where we can utilize our food productively. The more histamine in the body, the more stress we'll find ourselves under. And if I was to ask you guys, if you ever suffered from hay fever, for example, or anything from an allergy perspective, that's a why you take like antihistamines. And yeah, you could say, okay, well, if histamine was higher in the body, then maybe I'll just take an antihistamine. Yeah, that's great. But let's actually just think about the root cause here. And histamine is found to be highest in fermented foods. Okay, what are fermented foods? Carbohydrates, mainly, if not all of them. Right. So if we're potentially eating a large amount of carbohydrates, the reality of being exposed to high amounts of histamine is going to be higher. That bacteria buildup comes from how we make our food, how we store it, how we cool it, and it's definitely something worth considering. So what I always say to my guys, and what I try and practice myself, is although from a time management perspective you may find yourself in a position where you need to prep meals in advance, that's fine, but if you're talking about prepping a week's worth of rice, for example, that's gonna build, and you're going to be experiencing higher amounts of histamine buildup and bacteria buildup on that food, as if you were to make 2 to 3 days in advance, or maybe 1 day in advance. Okay, histidine, it converts to histamine, and you find huge amounts of histidine on protein. Okay, which you will be eating, sources of protein, meat sources, etc. So potentially washing your meat, certainly things like chicken is a good idea. But something to consider from again a GI function perspective, and as a result, digestibility, and being able to see that food being utilised effectively and not actually causing more issues. Fitness. Okay, so obviously, you're not going to be doing huge amounts of cardio. You may be an individual that likes doing cardio on a daily basis. Can that potentially prevent effective recovery protocols, considering your training volume is going to be extremely high, and it's going to be escalated, because that's when you're in the best possible position to grow. I like glycolytic HIIT training. I think it's absolutely fantastic in terms of your glycolysis. It's actually a metabolic pathway. Okay, so you're in a position where you can oxidize glucose to generate energy, and that energy transfers into ATP, which, for you guys that don't know, is the sole function for muscular contractions, which is what we'll be doing a lot of in our physique development journey. So if we're talking about increasing insulin sensitivity, glycolytic HIIT training is absolutely fantastic. It's essentially the approach I take for it for my guys is 15 minutes balls to the wall, 15 seconds balls to the wall, hard as you possibly can on something like, I don't know, a rower, a watt bike, a spin bike, anything that you can manage speed on very, very well, into 90 seconds rest, and for 6 rounds. So very, very short, very, very sharp. I wouldn't say you need to do it every day, but certainly if you are facing the reality of saturation and your fitness is a little bit low, it may be a great way to spark a little bit of appetite and help you continue to push forward. Also, actually potentially improve performance as well. Blood pressure, so blood pressure management. Certainly if you're getting heavy, you're going to experience higher levels of blood pressure. Obviously, we want to try and stay away from stage 1, stage 2 hypertension. But if you are an androgen user and you are very, very heavy and very big, then that exposure of high body weight, high androgens, that's something we're going to need to manage. So some of the supplements that you could consider, and I generally use an all-rounder supplement needs, things like HeartStack, Lipid Pro Plus. So HeartStack has like Arjuna in. Arjuna is something that I've used previously and throughout my health focus periods of time throughout my personal bodybuilding journey, and Arjuna is absolutely brilliant. I would almost consider it as like a bit of a cleanser of the heart. It's an Indian herb, but if you weren't gonna have that specific dosing from something like HeartStack or Lipid Pro Plus, then which it is in, then I would look at 500 milligrams of that daily. Niacin, so I mentioned Lipid Pro Plus, so niacin or vitamin B3 is fantastic, and although it's extremely intense, like for you guys, you may have had a niacin flush before. If you haven't, and you are an androgen user, I would suggest to utilise niacin only in short bursts of between 6 to 8 weeks. I normally use it throughout a recovery phase or a health phase. And the worse it is, the more you need it. But 1,000 milligrams of niacin or vitamin B3 is fantastic, again, in Lipid Pro Plus, so that does a job for you. And then things like hawthorn berry, beetroot extract, again, in your sups like HeartStack from Supplement Needs, really, really good. 900 milligrams of hawthorn berry and HeartStack, and I think it's 1,500 milligrams of beetroot extract. You could have beetroot juice. I ran beetroot juice, or even just eat them, just to have part of your nutrient density and your food. ARB. So you probably would have all heard of the term or the brand name or the supplement user of telmisartan. It's one of the sartan family. So there's irbesartan, I think valsartan, losartan, and then I think it's candesartan as well. Most people lean towards telmisartan. 40 to 80 milligrams per day is normally a good place to sit. There was a study, and again, we've got to be realistic with these sort of studies and what we tend to see, but telmisartan has been shown to reduce blood pressure. That's a fact. And there was a study done between 20 and 160 milligrams, so it's a wide range, can reduce systolic and diastolic by 15 and 10 milligrams of mercury. So even with that being the case, like I've been in a position where I've had guys before, and personally, to be fair, where I've seen my blood pressure rising, and I've actually utilised a higher amount of telmisartan to actually assess whether it's a human error in the reading, or whether it was whether I actually am suffering, and there was no adjustment. So again, blood pressure management. If you are taking it right and there is no human error, then obviously there's something to consider there. Sleep is something that you'll get affected by 100%. In terms of things that you could look at, CPAPs, SUPs, supplements. So a CPAP, let's talk about the sleep problem in general. So sleep apnea is a sleep-related breathing disorder where essentially your breathing stops and starts again. It happens when you get pretty fucking heavy, and you would experience it if you are someone who does experience it. I fortunately don't, but obviously I have my own health parameters to manage. That just fortunately isn't one of them. But a continuous positive airway pressure monitor machine is great. You go to bed looking like Bane, so potentially the missus isn't going to be very happy. But if you're a big lump anyway, potentially she'll be waiting for you to get your abs back, so you'll be all good there. Supplements, things like, again, by supplement needs, sleep aid, PM priming, anything that has zinc, magnesium, biglycinate in. I prefer magnesium biglycinate for quality. Vitamin B6, just for natural secretion of melatonin production. Dopamine, neurotransmitter decreasing, so being in a position where you can reduce dopamine. Even like carbohydrates, pre-bread do that, to be fair, so you'll be all good there because you'll be full of them. But things like PM priming have like L-theanine in, for example, that clears caffeine. And anything that can reduce cortisol. So you're talking, I can never pronounce it properly. What's it called? Anything, even down to like ashwagandha. Anything that will reduce cortisol prior to going to bed, which is obviously a stress hormone, is super important to get you in a relaxed state. And then you've got systemic fatigue. Obviously, all of the above, including health assessments. I won't go through health assessments now because I'm actually going to do if you guys want it, I'm actually going to do a separate webinar on it, so I'll leave that for now. But again, throughout your timeline, you should be taking your blood work, even if you're a natural client or athlete. Injuries, it's something to consider, right? So as you get bigger, you're going to get less and less mobile. If you stay on top of your mobility work, although it doesn't seem important, trust me, it will allow for far more progression, far better training. So mobility, muscle tech work, and then also peptides as well. Peptide protocols that I would utilise if you do pick up any niggles, like BPC 157 and TB 500. If you want the protocol for that, then let me know. I'm more than happy to share that with you. Obviously, I hope that you don't need it, but obviously it's always good to err on the side of caution. And then last but not least, hormone balance. This is person dependent. So for me, for example, the pros and cons for my hormone management, I prefer to run estrogen a little bit higher due to its cardiac protective response and ability, which is great. As a result, I suffer from water displacement and look a little bit softer in my progression phases. That may be a benefit to some people, it may not be a benefit and focus to others. As a result, my lipid profile is very, very good. So hormone balance, potentially even seeing things like gyno due to incorrectly managed cycle and stat design is definitely something to something to consider. Okay, guys, right, moving on. Here we go. What we're all here for: the raw model for off-season and muscle gaining. So, taking you through a couple of snippets here. Is my camera not on? Hold on a minute. Camera wasn't even on. There you go. Hello. Right. Okay. So we're getting started in our gaining phase, right? And I'll run you through the scenario and the setup for this. So go through day/week 1, and we're moving from a maintenance set point into a surplus. We may take another week on maintenance just for stability, because week 1 we're going to be going super physiological. Okay, we're pushing into super physiological androgen realms. Depending on how much that is for you, if you, and I wouldn't suggest being at peak androgen load straight away in terms of what you've ever touched before, but we want to start pushing into super physiological realm. Okay, so start of growth phase, baseline androgens in, maintenance to surplus. Okay, in terms of where that would be, you could say 500 calories above your maintenance, and you could say of carbohydrates if you wanted. Okay, now pushing all the way up to 20, maybe 30 weeks. Again, it'd be great if you could get to 30 weeks. You're going to be at the end of your initial growth phase, where you would have made those adjustments on a bi-weekly basis, weekly basis, whatever the need of your current positioning is at. At that period of time, saturation is going to be high, peak drugs, peak food, peak training, and that's a fact. I would always, guys, advise, when you're in a position where you've had a fucking guts full, literally, ride it out, because the longer you can stay and consolidate at a heavier weight, at a higher variable set point, the better. Now, understanding that our goals are to always be growing, you'll see here that on the transition away from improvement and surplus phase at the end of your growth phase, I'm actually keeping you at super physiological range. Gear is staying in, because I'm going to be super aggressive with food. Super aggressive, because you're not going to be interested in eating. It's a perfect time to rid body fat, and it's a perfect time to be on low calories, right? Because you're not interested. You won't be interested in food. During that period of time, although you can't lose muscle that you never had, we still want to be able to consolidate as much as we possibly can and actually be in an effective position to be able to rid body fat. So I would utilise lipolytics during this short, sharp clean-up phase. I do. But keep peak androgens in, rip out the food, build up sensitivity very, very quickly, and also achieve a hell of a lot from a fat loss perspective. Okay, once that period of time, short period of time, and you're talking 4 to maybe a 6 week cleanup if you wanted to, but you don't really need to run 6 weeks, providing you're aggressive enough out the gates. Again, into maintenance week 1, see that initial weight fluctuation and drop, clearance of shit weight and adiposity, then into fat loss 4 to 6 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks it would be, and then out. A little bit of lipolytics in to support fat loss and acute fat loss, and you're good to go. Now you move into a recovery phase. Then during that recovery phase, because you've built up an enormous amount of sensitivity and you essentially transition into a deficit, that's when I would reintroduce maintenance. And as you're clearing androgens, because you'll be going on to baseline PEDs, which would be your hormone replacement therapy dose, I suppose, replacement therapy dose. As you're doing that and you're clearing androgens, which will take, depending on half-life and what you've got in, 4 to 8 weeks, you're then going to transition into your recovery phase, but start to build food back up. So now you've got another anchor of progression in, because initially you take out food, which is an anchor of progression, but you've got androgens in. Once you remove androgens, although it's going to be clearing, you then bring food back up. You don't have to be super aggressive with that, but slowly start to transition away from maintenance and then slowly into surplus. build that up for up to 8 weeks, as and when you need to. Then you're ready to get back into a growth phase. Heads go back in, but food is already high. So you're in a position where you get like a second wind, right? You literally rebound out of your rebound, okay? So you've made an enormous amount of progress over an 8 week period of time, just building food up, getting past that reality of like a high level of sensitivity and potentially food focus. Then you introduce gear and assistance, but food is already nice and high. So you imagine how much escalation you're going to see from not only a physical perspective, but a performance perspective as well. Aesthetic perspective, but from a performance perspective as well, which is only going to materialize more progression. Now, once you're at that position, pushing in super physiological range, you're going to try and push that for as long as you possibly can again. Based on where you are from a timeline perspective, whether you're planning on doing a supersonic photo shoot, or you're gonna do a competition, or you just want to get lean for a holiday. That transition then is going to come into what's called a priming phase. Okay, so you've rinsed all you can from a super physiological phase again. Move into a priming phase, which will be you returning to maintenance calories. Okay, start clearing of androgens, and then obviously the goal will change, and you move into a fat loss phase. But having time on that maintenance phase, on that maintenance set point, from a calorie perspective, is the difference, okay? Because then you're going to be able to, again, regain stability, lay the foundations for an effective phase transitionary period, and then you get into a deficit. As soon as you move into a deficit period of time, your body weight's going to move. You also don't need to be crazy on the reality of androgens yet, because you're still clearing. By the time you get to between week 4 and week 8, you're going to be pretty bottom of the barrel, but you can start making some headway on fat loss, reintroduce assistance at a maintenance dose, and you'll be able to literally swing through any fat loss phase with new muscle tissue, looking absolutely fucking fantastic and feeling great as well. So that is the model. That is how you get fucking massive and continue to do so. And you can literally just run this over and over and over again. Push, clean up, recover, whilst pushing, push again, and just continue to run that cycle. And it's as simple as that. Now, I want to run you through a couple of guys who have gone through this process in different timelines, but just to give you an idea of where these guys have actually materialized level of progression. Okay, so taking Andy's head off there. Alright, so Andre, for example. Andre is at this very moment in time 15 kilos up from following this process. Right about there. Crazy growth. Ziga, at this very moment in time, is 10 kg up from his start of prep last time in this level of composition. So he's gone from this to this, and is 10 kilos heavier than when he started prep for this last time. Now, that if that doesn't confirm new muscle tissue, not a lot will. Cal is in a position where he's 30 pounds up, 15 kilo, best part of 15 kilos, but 30 pounds up from the start of prep last time. Now, in this level of composition, being 30 pound up still, there's an absolute guarantee that there's going to be new muscle tissue there. Absolutely impossible. In terms of, if you want to know how much Cal actually gained following this exact process, he gained 84 pound. It was 85 pound during this process of him going from here to obviously peak weight and then being ready to actually start dieting down. 84 pound he gained total. Andy, 36 kilos up from stage rate or bottom of the barrel on prep to then being here. 36 kilos. Andy's still moving. He's actually heavier than that now. So there's an example. Stuart Denny, over 30 kilos up. Good composition, following that process, that exact roadmap. Santino is a natty, complete natty. Following that exact process, 15 kg up and in better condition. 15 kg up here, and at this very moment in time, since we've transitioned him back into a fat loss phase, he's still holding 10 kilos up. So he's lost 5 kilos from here of body fat, and absolutely looks like he's laughing at his former self. Okay, Matt was in a position where he was 8 kilos up on stage weight, in arguably better condition and abso-fucking-lutely with more muscle. And then Kareem, I actually don't have the statistic for that, but you can see the level of growth there. I don't even think I need to give you a number based on the amount of progression that has been made there. So these are just some case studies of guys on the team at the moment who have followed this process literally to the T. Obviously followed what I've told them, but in terms of like my roadmap and how I would essentially ensure that they are always growing, this is a type of progression that can be achieved. 84 pound, but 30 kilos up from the last time we even started dieting. 15. The progression is there, guys. Now, this is normally where I would ask if anyone's got any questions. I'm not able to do that because you're watching it on a recording. So if you scan that code, that QR code, I will answer any questions for you guys. One thing that I'm also going to be offering is a free physique analysis and a call to be able to talk you through your current position, actually understand it more effectively for you, and then also be in a position where I can actually take you through this roadmap and how it would effectively work for you and your goals. Okay? So guys, any questions, if you want more clarification on anything that I've discussed, please feel free to drop me a message using this QR code. Go straight through to my WhatsApp. We can have a chat. You can tell me a little bit more about yourself. Obviously, I appreciate you guys for watching this as well. For everyone that's made it to the end, obviously it's an hour's worth of education, so you're already a better individual. You're already going to make more progress than you have previously because you've got more information and knowledge to go out your journey with. So I really appreciate all of you for getting in contact and watching this, and I hope that's been helpful. If you can do a little bit of promotion on the socials, that'd be absolutely great, just so more people can see this and obviously it's able to help more people as well. But again, I really appreciate it. Hope you've had I hope it's been helpful, and look forward to hearing from you soon. All the best.